In China 这些不用讲的，你知道的
Yeah,
which means like
you don't need to say, right?
Don't need to
But
say,
I feel it.
Wow, you really got study some basic Chinese.
Now I am like supreme level because that's what I thought to myself.
Was there something that surprised you?
I have never said this anywhere.
How does a Chinese Singaporean edit something that's so steep in Indian culture?
Yeah, when you're going through tough things, right? How many times do you sit down and talk about it with the person that you love?
Welcome to Curious Culture, where we hear stories from documentaries and the people who make them. I'm a.k.a, and our guest today is Priyanka. She's a writer and storyteller who is about to graduate from the Nanyang Technological University Wee Kim Wee School of Communication. As she's about to begin her new chapter, we have a special look back at her very first documentary, an inspiring portrayal of a classical Indian dancer who has multiple sclerosis. Now, I know for the fact that with every documentary, there's a meaningful opportunity where relationships would form. I've seen directors and their subjects become great friends, and I've also seen audiences become believers of the subject matter. There's so much that I want to unpack here, so without further ado, Priyanka, welcome to Curious Culture.
Thank you so much for having me. I think you have like a wonderful setup whereby it really makes me feel like I'm at home, so I'm ready to take on like all the questions that you have.
That's what I hope that you would feel. It's a homely setup where we can have this honest, authentic conversation. So I want to dive right in. We want to hear a lot more stories about your 2020 documentary, Abinayam. Now, the English translation for this is expressions. So before I get into the nitty-gritty, was it difficult trying to find the title for this film?
I kind of knew at the end of the day that Indian classical dance is the main theme of it. It focuses a lot on the word expression. When you watch the film, you would see Ambiga's expression, her movement. That itself, it's an expression. Every time you move your hand, you move your feet.
For the people who have never watched this film before, how will you describe this film to them?
I would say that it's a ray of light, it's a ray of hope. That's how I see the film as. I think when you follow the main character and her story, you'll realize that at the end of the day, it is the ray of hope and the light that you hold on to. And I really think that is life at the end of the day. Yeah.
Right. And I see that so clearly when we follow this snippet of a journey of Ambiga. How do you first meet her, and how did this lead to becoming a documentary?
It's a funny story actually. So I was doing my internship at a particular company. I wanted to explore production. More than I wanted to explore production, I wanted to explore writing. It so happened that they were doing a dance drama. So they were auditioning people, and the director/writer of that drama, she knew Ambiga long ago, and Ambiga, the main character, was called for the audition to come in and so I was the assistant producer back then. And then my director looked at me and said that, can you please take her to the toilet and help her out to change into her sari? And I immediately got so nervous because I saw her, she was on a wheelchair, and I'm someone who's known to be a little more clumsy than other people. So I was like, I was a bit hesitant, but then I still followed her to the toilet and everything. So she had to stand up from her wheelchair to change into the dance sari. And she told me, can you give me your hand so that I can hold to like stand up? And then like my hand wasn't like, strong.
Not firm.
Yes,
right?
correct. It wasn't firm. So she was like trying to like stand up, right? And then like I moved, I jerked. So like she also jerked. And then I felt so horrible about it. And then she just told me, it's okay. Like, I don't know why, I felt a sense of connection.
It's a core memory for you.
Yes, correct. So when I went back to school and I was told that, okay, there's this FYP, we want to do documentary, she was the first person that came to my mind. I know it sounds like bizarre, like why, I don't know, which is why I feel like I cannot explain it exactly, like why that connected me to her. But it was just that specific incident. I knew that like I wanted to explore more with her. There's so much, there's something in her that I feel like I needed to dig up. Yeah.
I'm very familiar with this process. More often than not in documentaries, it almost feels like it is the stories that presents an opportunity to us, almost like serendipitously, and then we have to decide, can we do it? Are we capable of doing it? And it feels like that level of empathy that you felt in that small, simple connection, there's this opportunity that you can't miss, because you are doing this also for your Polytechnic's final year project as well. Yes. Now, here's the thing also. Just because you have an idea doesn't mean it comes to fruition. You have not spoken to Ambiga since that quote-unquote awkward experience. How do you master the courage to turn this idea into reality?
So the thing is, I knew for a fact like I wanted her and everything, right? I wrote an essay long email to her saying that you see, this is how I met you. You made me feel this way. I know you're part of this drama. I know you're performing. I really hope you give me a chance to just sit down with you and like have a conversation with you, and then you can decide from there. And I was so nervous. And then she replied like the next day, and it was just a one-liner that came to me. Hi Priyanka, sure, let's meet and talk. And then I was so happy that at least, I know that if I have the chance to sit down and talk, I can convince.
I know exactly. Give me a chance.
Yes.
I'm going to convince you on the spot with my sincerity.
Yeah.
I wasn't dancing as much as what I used to. So I was thinking maybe I lost it. When I went to Kutekpot Hospital, so they saw my symptoms. My doctor came and he told me, so Ambiga, all the test results are out and you have multiple sclerosis.
In that first interview, I already felt that intimacy, that trust that you have built with Ambiga. Take us through a little bit of the process to earn that trust such that both of you were ready to have this conversation on camera.
So believe it or not, I spent a lot of my time in her house talking to her, because I know that the more I learn what happened in her life, that's gonna make a difference when we start rolling the camera itself. And I really did it because I just wanted to see what she had to say and everything. We have been talking a lot about her journey already, a lot about what has happened, what is happening now. So I think she was very comfortable at this point already to open up.
My dad is coming. I think it's always a daddy's girl moment. We're always so excited when our daddy is here.
Now move this along a little bit to talking about the cast, because your ensemble is quite large for a documentary that is quite short.
Yeah.
But that would also imply that there's a lot of process that you have to go through to earn the trust. Sure, you can earn Ambiga's trust, but then of the father and mother, the dance instructor, the doctor, what is that process like to bring everyone on board and buy into this project of yours?
It was a lot. I mean, it goes without saying, a lot of hard work, a lot of convincing, a lot of times that I would say both me and my producer, we went down to build a rapport and all those things. Because I really wanted each one of them to come on board feeling something. Because at the end of the day, when the viewer is watching, I want them to be able to connect to like each one of the other characters inside Ambiga's life as well. So be it the teacher, I remember us going down earlier to like speak to her before the cameras start rolling and things like that.
There are many ways that we could have done an interview. We could have done it whereby the questions are a lot more spontaneous. They are sit-down interviews, similar to what we're doing right now. But you have decided that for most of your interviews, I would like to have this loved one sit beside Ambiga. Why was that decision taken?
I think for me, I wanted it to be a little gift to Ambiga herself. That's why I did it such. Because I feel like many a times, we don't get the opportunity to sit down and have a moment with this kind of people in our life. That even goes to Ambiga's like teacher. Yes, they have a good relationship, but when you're going through tough things, right? How many times do you sit down and talk about it with the person that you love? So that's why I intentionally did it, so that I wanted Ambiga to also feel the process of the documentary, and that was the reason why, like, even for, like what you say is true, I don't need Ambiga to be stationed there, with her teacher, but I wanted her to like know and like learn the feeling that her teacher had for her also. Yeah. You're
most respecting her that this process, yes, you're making a documentary about you, but for you yourself, there's a healing process to this, or at the very least, it's finally an opportunity where I'm setting the stage for you to hear from the people who have like supported you, because I understand this just in terms of maybe the Singaporean culture or at least the Southeast Asian culture, us expressing our feelings of gratitude or support sometimes like
right.
In China 这些不用讲的，你知道的, which means like
you don't need to say, right?
Don't need to
but
say,
I feel it.
Wow, you really got some basic Chinese, Yeah, so but then it's very nice when we get to have the opportunity, and in our case unique, to hear it from them and the moment where I saw Ambiga had that smile, like the mind is too strong. You see, because she was silent throughout the entire thing, but when she said that, I was like, yeah.
I told her not to give up. I say, fight it. You need to fight it. It's all in the mind. So, she was able to, her mind is still strong. That's more important than anything else.
So here I want to touch on a little bit about the language, because this documentary is really steeped within the Indian culture. Obviously, you have Ambiga, who is a practitioner of classical Indian dance. So when I saw the film for the first time, and you can see that there is admittedly a lot more English dialogue than it is Tamil dialogue, was that an intentional creative choice on your part?
I think when people view the documentary, I wanted them to have to be in ease of the language translation from English to Tamil or Tamil to English. I don't want it to feel jarring at any point, or any point they are unable to connect. For an example, doing this full-fledged in Tamil also won't go wrong. I know that. But I also put myself in the position of a viewer, as someone who likes to enjoy watching this kind of thing. I think relatability always comes in a bit more stronger when it's mixed, because the cultural aspect, to me, it stands out a lot more.
The Singaporean conversation can be mixed and can be bilingual in its essence, which points, I think, then to the scene where the father was being interviewed. It's interesting because there is so much expression, just like the title would suggest, so much that we can get out of the way the father has conveyed through his facial expressions, and then through very few words. Now, he is one of the only characters in your film that spoke Tamil, while everyone else was speaking English during their interviews. Why was that made in terms of a creative choice by you?
I think when he actually talks off camera, he would naturally talk to me in Tamil. I also saw the way he converses with Ambiga also. It is naturally something that he talks in Tamil. And I also felt creatively, when I put the camera there, I don't want him to be talking in a language that, distances the audience away from the screen, because I want him to be exactly how he is without the camera over there. And he really was in his element. I didn't even have to tell him uncle, please talk in Tamil, or please talk in English. I just wanted the camera to roll and to see what we got out of it. And
just be who you are.
திடீர்னு அதுக்கு இந்த மாதிரி கால் நடக்க முடியாமல் போனதுனால அதுக்கு மனசு ஊனமாகிடுச்சு. அதே போல் எங்களுக்கும் அதை நினச்சி எங்கள் மனசும் வேதனைப்பட்டுச்சு. பட் நாங்கள் என்ன பண்ண முடியும், எல்லாம் ஆண்டவன் விட்ட வழி.
Now, obviously, you have a very good command of your mother tongue and deep knowledge and participation in the culture as well. For someone else who may want to enter into these kind of opportunities but don't have perhaps that confidence of that proficiency, what tips might you have for them? Because they have that interest, but their starting point is a little bit further back.
I struggled a lot speaking in Tamil when I was younger. When I was in primary school, I always used to get bullied and made fun of. My Tamil teachers were very, very harsh on me also, because they always felt like I didn't have a good command when I speak. And I would always feel so inferior about the fact that I cannot speak. But if you ask me, what also pushed me to be someone who now is able to write, who's able to confidently speak, is the fact of all these people constantly telling me, you are not good. When you struggle with the language so much, I feel like a lot of people put you down more than guiding you back up. I think this one I have to credit my mom. She really put in a lot of hard work to she would take, I can still remember, she would take half-day leave to come back home to sit down and teach me for my oral next day, or for me to sit down and write my papers next day. So it came to a point whereby my Tamil teachers were shocked that how is this girl so bad in talking, but then she is doing exceedingly well in her papers, and then slowly I started to watch a lot more Tamil shows also, to ensure that I'm able to speak without much pauses and things like that. So I would say that as long as you have the interest, you want to be better, I think you must tune out to what people have to say, and you also have to put in the work. For an example, for myself, I started to write a lot. I started to read a lot. I started to watch things a lot consciously. And I think this is a homework that you have to do. I always feel like it's an up and down journey. It's never gonna be like, wow, I hit this really right. Now I am like supreme level, because that's what I thought to myself. I don't think it stops with liking a language. It's a lot more than liking a language. It's the work that goes behind it, for sure.
Is this a mindset thing based on the negativity, the criticism that you face? Because for some people who have faced what you faced, they was like, oh no, that is the reason why I fell out of love for it.
I think it was more of like the first question that you phrased to me, because your initial question to me was, what about people who like to do this but they have this issue? And I think was my problem. I love this. Like, I love cultural, anything to do with like the Indian culture.
You want to connect.
Yeah, I want to connect. I want to speak. I want to be like a very proficient, good Tamil writer. But the problem comes when you're not like good at it.
Yes.
So the mindset is a bit more easier to control because you love it. So if you love it, then you have to put in the work to naturally climb up. So I think that's how it was for me. I love it so much that I was willing to go whatever lengths it takes for me to like learn it. I was willing to like do it. Yeah.
So from that context, when you seize this opportunity to do a documentary on Ambiga, on a Indian tradition that you are very familiar with, was that like a breath of fresh air? Do you feel like it's like, I am going to seize this because it means so much, not just for my audience, for Ambiga, but also for myself?
Yes, for sure. That's exactly how I felt, because at the end of the day, when you give me an opportunity to soak in my own culture, wow, it is like my cup of tea, you know?
Do you think that your understanding of your own culture helped you with the story? Because different people would have different understandings and even participation in their own culture. How was yours at the start of the documentary, and perhaps how did it evolve by the end of it?
Yeah, I think that was like a solid question, because like this is something that I don't think I've ever shared anywhere before. So why I even like chose like dance, and I really wanted the word expression and things all to be there, is because I took up dancing, classical dancing, when I was 6 years old, and I have never said this anywhere before, that I took up classical dance at 6 years old. So it was very close to my heart. I refused to quit to a certain degree, but at the same time, I really tried, but I really couldn't pick it up. But if you ask me, did that fuel in me die? It never did. Till today, I have great obsession and so much of admiration to like any classical Indian dancers, because it's very, very hard. It's a huge commitment on their side. Even for Ambiga's side, I hope the documentary gave off the feel of how important the role of a teacher is to guide the student, because it just doesn't stop with dance. The teachers do guide their journey beyond dance itself. So it's a very beautiful thing. I didn't get to experience it, but I feel like I lived it through the documentary.
Vicariously,
yes,
right?
yes, the documentary. Yeah.
That's such a personal journey. Was there, in the entire process, was there something that surprised you? Something that you've learned about yourself, a revelation perhaps?
I think I really became a lot more of a confident individual after I did this documentary, because I'm someone who will always self-doubt a lot more than an ordinary person that you meet, because like, you know, people will have self-doubts and then they'll tell themselves, I just go and do it. Like, I'm a person where I'll self-sabotage myself. So like, I think I'm no good, right? I won't do it. So like, this documentary really forced me, because the moment you are directing something, people will say that you are the captain of the ship. And I really felt for this, because for my friends who were on board, there's a language barrier for them. Like 3 of them, they were all Chinese. So there was a lot of like, I liars, I go back, I liars, I have to translate, I have to tell my editor why I want this shot, because it's difficult for her to understand why I'm so insistent about this being here.
Yes, I've wanted to ask this because your editor is a Chinese Singaporean.
Yes, correct. Yeah.
And so how does a Chinese Singaporean edit something that's so steeped in Indian culture?
Yeah.
And I'm sure she will have to watch the dailies as well with the father and all that. It's all Tamil.
Yeah.
How was that process like?
it was very tough for her and it was very tough for me because she'll be getting like long messages, of me saying like, okay, this one have to be. But at the same time, I would say that I was very, very lucky. She was equally hardworking and she put in like her best work also. She also felt something. I think all of them actually, they felt something when they met Ambiga and then when we were piecing it together. So it was a very natural transition for herself. When she don't know anything, she was confused. She was like, why do I need to put this in? She'll always ask. It was really like we worked together to piece this. Yeah.
There's so many ways to end a documentary. It's very hard because the story continues long after you stopped your cameras and long after the film has been produced. And you've decided as part of your ending, I want to put in a poetry. Not only that, it's an original poetry written in Tamil. What was the spark and what was the process of writing that?
I enjoy writing a lot, whether or not it's writing in English or writing in Tamil. Like young time, if anybody asked me what do you want to be, it has always been writer. Like I always thought that I'll be writing for a magazine, I'll be writing a book, but I have never ever considered writing for a film, writing for movies. But I think I fell in love with that style of writing when I went for my internship. Because that's when I was given opportunities. I think I had really wonderful bosses who gave me opportunities to come up with like creative concept. And I was working under a boss whereby she was a writer herself. So it's not a necessity to like give like 2 intern girls like opportunity to go and write a concept paper. But she was nice enough to say that, okay, go and write. And that's where I feel like I realized that I have a flair towards writing like creatively. And I'm someone who, my friends will always make fun of me. I love reading quotes. I love writing quotes. So like when someone comes to me with a problem, it's like I give the advice already, right? Then there will be one quote. And then they will be like, seriously? Is that needed? So speaking about all those things, so poems is something that very naturally is something that I will read. I have books that is based on just like poems themselves. So I enjoy reading because I feel like there's so much to unpack, and what you differ from a poem and what I get out of a poem is very different. So it always draws me, and I think Tamil, when I feel like we really make use of the formal aspect of it, is when you write a poem. Because suddenly now everyone is flipping the dictionary and going like, okay, English to Tamil translation, what does that mean, But I also wrote it like originally because of the fact that what I wrote exactly was how I felt towards Ambiga. I was very sure that her journey isn't going to stop just here. Like something in me told me that this is the start to a lot of great things. And I'm so happy that like I knew it because I'm still very close to her. I still talk to her and things like that. Ambiga went on to write her own book. So like again, I saw all these like great things like coming for her. I don't know what it was, of course, at that point of time.
But there's a feeling.
Yeah.
You know that this is going to play out.
Yeah, and I know that when I made this film, I wanted it to be something that she is very proud of at the end of the day when she like watches it or whatsoever. So when I wrote the thing also, I wanted to ensure that whenever she watches this, she also reminds herself of like how it all started, where she is right now, and wherever she's going towards. I'm sure the journey is great. And I wanted people to also know that, to be curious, when they watch like, actually what is Ambiga doing now? Yeah.
Now, when you write a poem in your mother tongue, but you have also embraced that I want this film to be as accessible as possible, which means that this has to meet audiences who may not understand the Tamil language that well. You have created an enormous challenge for yourself because any poem in our mother tongue, it's next to impossible to capture its entire meaning by subtitling it to English.
Yeah.
Right? You capture parts of it, but you'll never feel satisfactory.
Correct. Yeah.
So what was that process like now in subtitling it to the point whereby okay, you know what, at least it captures the essence, the spirit?
I think for me, I really focused a lot on like the words that I was speaking out. Because I know, for an example, Abinayam, the title of the film, you will know that there's no two different meanings for it. You will immediately know that, okay, it's expression. So when I was writing the poem, I had the same intention. I was like, I'm not going to go all out flowery and like extremely poetry, because I know that when I were to translate it, there will be like, does it mean this or does it mean that? So I was very careful in the way that I was picking my words. So that aspect said, it was definitely a bit less of a challenge when I was going to translate it. It didn't feel like, is this the meaning? Am I really satisfied? That kind of a thing. Yeah.
நயனத்தில் பிறந்து நடனத்தில் சேர்ந்து அபிநயத்தில் வாழ்கிறேன் முடிவென்பதில்லை வேறொரு தேடல்.
Usually when we go through a documentary process, some people may risk losing their way because it is such a deep process and there are creative choices, and you know that because these are real people and their lives are going to live on way past the documentary is completed, and it might impact them if, let's say, it's scaled. We have to do justice to it. We have to be responsible for it. And sometimes that takes a toll on the director and the entire team. How was that like for you? And when things became a little bit too heavy, what kept you going?
I was very fixated that if I'm putting this much of work inside the documentary, then I really want it to be seen by people. And at that point of time, we were very lucky, like Honor Singapore, they funded the film. There is the opportunity for it to be screened. So if you asked me what kept me going, it was the fact that one day this will be screened to people and people will see the ray of light that like my team saw, you know, and I wanted a lot more of them to like see this ray of hope. So I know that when it gets screened on a big screen, I should sit down there and be like, I did whatever I can at that point of my life, you know? Yeah.
And when people sit down and have that big screen experience, what do you hope people would take away from that?
I really hope they get a taste of the culture, especially. I think there's so many components to Indian culture. It's almost a little bit hard to like wrap your head around. But I want them to see the Indian classical aspect of it. How much Indian dance actually means to Indian dancers specifically. I also want them to see like the hope to never give up at like whatever point in your life. Even if you don't see something coming, to always hold on to the fact that you will find a way out. And I think Ambiga portrays that very nicely. I really want people to meet Ambiga, like her story, because the way I felt when I saw her for the first time, I hope like they feel the same way when they look at the documentary.
Wonderful. Well, if you want to experience this ray of light for yourself, there is a chance that's coming up. You can watch Abinayam.
Yeah.
I'll work on that. Abinayam. You can watch Abinayam yourself on the big screen, as well as all of the other documentaries that's featured in this season of Qrious Culture. There is a special live public showcase that's happening September 2024. Not only will you have a chance to watch all of this on the big screen, you'll get to see Priyanka herself as part of the panel discussion. Are you excited for such an experience?
I am. I think this film has been sleeping for the last 5 years.
5 years.
5 years already.
Too long.
It's about time that like people see it, I think. Yeah.
It is about time. And if you want to be part of this grand unveiling, just simply log on to curiousculture.com. You can find the links in the description or on our socials as well. And finally, please, if you've enjoyed this episode, do consider liking and subscribing. It will help us bring this show to go a long way, because we would love to meet more people like Priyanka. And finally, please share this to those that you care. We've appreciated your time, and I've appreciated your time, Priyanka.
Thank you so much for having me.